So welcome everyone. Hello. Welcome to Renew US Zines 101. I am super excited to turn it over to two fantastic facilitators. Very briefly, my name is Jen Brown. I am the education director here at Renew US. And what we do is really work with partners that are in states across the country, working on building progressive governing power from state level and down ballot. Now, what that means is we are doing all the things because we are in a moment in history that we have to do all the things. And that is why tonight I am so pumped to introduce two fantastic facilitators, and I'm going to let them just take it away, Zoe and Mar.
Woo! We're very excited. Hi everyone. My name is Zoe Jensen, she, her, and I am a co-editor with Mar of Connecticut.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Mar. I use she, they pronouns. Jen is actually, I'm lucky to have Jen as a coworker. I also work for Renew US. I'm the organizing director for the New England states. But when I'm not doing that, I'm also the co-editor for Connecticut with my best friend here, Zoe. And we're really excited to talk to y'all today a little bit about what zines are in general, and then kind of dive into what it has to do with organizing. For those that just hopped in, if you just got here, please feel free to, in the chat, drop your name, your pronouns, and why you took this class, why you're interested in zines. And I think that now we told y'all we're both part of Connecticut. So Jen, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll tell you a little bit what that even means.
So what even is Connecticut? So Connecticut is a bi-monthly print zine that only features artists from or in Connecticut. So we started this about coming up on 2 years ago. We both went to UConn and were involved in the UConn Zine Club there. Shout out to Izzy Geller for putting that on. And we just wanted a way to connect Connecticut artists past college, which I feel like zines and that sort of community is there. But anyways, just wanted to have a home base. And we are coming up on our 10th issue in April, which is absolutely amazing. You can see all of our issues below the screen, and it's been in digital and print format, featuring lots and lots of different artists across the state. And somehow we got a website that is very new. Yeah. We would never have guessed that would get this far. It's crazy. You can go to the next slide.
So what is a zine? Obviously, like this, the class is called Zines 101. But basically zine comes from the ending of the word magazine. So it's an independently published magazine. But that can mean a million different things. So it can, first of all, either be in print or made digitally. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it can take so many different forms. So it can be sent to like a professional printer that makes you hundreds or even thousands of copies. It can, or you can print them at home at your home printer. It can be made of old scraps, or it can be like just on glossy, fresh paper. They can look completely different. It can be a team effort, or it can be just the work of one individual. And they can take on a wide range of topics, or they can even be hyper specific. But I think even more importantly than like the content of a zine, like zines can be even more than that. Zines can be a community, like Zoe was talking about, like here in Connecticut has really become a community for like specifically like queer folks and BIPOC folks and young folks that don't always have like a place to express their creativity. Zines can be used to spread stories or information. A zine can be used to organize. And even more importantly than that, a zine doesn't have to be for anything at all. It can just be for creativity, for joy, and for fun, which I think is super important. We can go to the next slide.
So just going to go over a couple examples of zines. So on the far left here, we have Riot Girl, which was a whole movement of zines that really focused not only on spreading information just about like gender equity, particularly in the music industry, but also had a lot of fanzines, like so specific zines that were about bands. And then Fire is a Harlem Renaissance based zine, because that's, I feel like, during like all those zines have been around in many different forms, like since you could print stuff during the Harlem Renaissance, it really picked up sharing information that otherwise wouldn't be shared in larger media outlets. And there's another little art zine to the right of that of the Harlem Renaissance. And then to the other right is a fanzine specifically, which is just covering a band and just a zine all about that band. So as you can see here, this is just like something that happened even like over 100 years ago. But I also brought some zines because Connecticut does these zine fairs, which are super fun and is based in Connecticut. So just to show you how different these zines all look, like you can look at this alone. I wish I brought even more, but they all look like very different sizes, very different ways of printing. So we have like this risograph printed zine that is like very pretty and like has very specific sorts of colors. We have this Shattering Abolition zine, which is all about the Oakland gentrification and just is specifically words. Like you don't have necessarily art besides these fantastic piggy banks on the front. Like these are specifically for spreading information. And then we also have like this comic by Simone Hasselmo, which is really beautiful and are about specific topics, but are more in like comic format. And then we have like Connecticut,
This is our baby.
This is our baby. This is our most recent issue. And as you can see, it has a lot of different like art, but also words. We have like the classifieds, which were a hit last time. And yeah, so as you can see even here, like those are all very different types of printing styles. And then we also have like this Cap the Rent zine by Alice Pryle, who's an absolutely amazing zine artist in New Haven. And you can see like it's specifically about the rental crisis in New Haven that has like some sort of illustrations and information about how to advocate for affordable housing in Connecticut. And then this was printed on a piece of printer paper because as you can see, when it comes out, it's like a regular piece of printer paper. And on the back, it's like more information specifically about capping the rent in Connecticut. And then you can see it folds up really well. And actually speaking of this, if you happen to like be walking around or whatever, if you have a piece of printer paper and like some scissors, we can like do a little zine making in a bit. So we can teach you how to make something like this, which I think is like the most accessible and like honestly like really fun way to just get a little crafty. So yeah, many different types of zines in many different formats.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be something that you make multiples of either and then spread around. Like you can literally later, like Zoe said, go grab a piece of paper now because we're going to show y'all how to do this later, but you can just make one and just have it. It doesn't always have to be for like a bigger purpose or anything. We can go to the next slide. So here's a little bit, you guys saw it with like this Cap the Rent zine, but this is a little bit about how zines and organizing are connected. So of course, like art in and of itself is radical. Creativity, self-expression, all these things are radical, right? Like capitalism doesn't reward these things, and yet we do them anyways, and we find joy and we build community out of these things. So for me, like zines can create a space for people to explore all of these things without like profit being the thing that you're looking for or fulfilling some other like capitalistic expectation. It's just like to do it. I think just doing that is inherently radical and worthy and a powerful form of organizing. Also, zines are an extremely effective way of taking back information, spreading power, and storytelling power, right? Think about like mainstream media and who owns it. It's giant corporations run by like the very few wealthy, white, straight people. And those like media outlets, whether it's the news or even like TV shows and movies, only show the interests of those very few people. So when we create our own independent forms of media like zines and take back control of our own narratives, we can build something really beautiful and spread information that otherwise wouldn't be deemed important enough. We can also uplift the people that are most often silenced, right? We can uplift queer folks. We can uplift BIPOC folks. We can uplift low income folks, people with disabilities, neurodivergent folks, every single person that is normally not given, the space to share their voice. So you can also use zines to call people to action, to mobilize them. Like you saw on this Cap the Rent zine, which is a really great example. On the back, there's a section that just says, how do I get involved? And it tells you, you can contact your legislators about Senate bill, and you can sign this petition, and it gives you the information. Zines are really great for that, for spreading information and getting folks knowledge about different causes. And also it could help you anonymously spread information that otherwise may be unsafe or technically illegal, even if it's not wrong to do so. So for example, in states where abortion has become illegal, a lot of zines popped up that were spreading information for folks on how they can access it, right? So this is information that folks were saying, like, don't even look that up because people are like looking into your record. So zines can be a really powerful way to subversively pass that information around. Also, for example, for folks that are undocumented, if you want to pass around information to help that community without getting those folks in trouble, it's a really good way to anonymously pass around that kind of information. Yeah, and in Connecticut, something we often do is mix in with art and other things. We'll include an article or an essay or an interview about organizing topics, and kind of have all kinds of different media sitting together for people to enjoy.
Yeah, Mar did a really great piece on housing justice in the last Valentine's Day issue, just about how housing justice is love. So yeah, there's a lot of great ways to sort of like spread that information that maybe wouldn't have otherwise gotten to people about housing reform in Connecticut. So really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Go to the
Next slide.
Thank you. So one way that you can just jump right into zines, be like, let's go. Like maybe you don't
Right
have the
now.
paper, but let's go right now. You can actually make a digital zine. So with even just like free tools, like a Canva free account or Google Slides, I put the dimensions here. So this first dimension, 5.5 by 8.5, is what we use for Connecticut. So it's like half a size of printer paper. And then at 8.5 by 11 is like a full size printer paper. So I only say that if you want something that maybe you can like print out later, or you want to format it into something that is printable, or maybe just like I don't know, something that looks like paper. I recommend those two. And you can actually download it, say, for example, as like a PDF, and save it to your Google Drive. Or whatever sort of like cloud service you use, and then change the sharing settings so that people can share it around. I've actually had people who were discussing something and it's a topic that maybe you wouldn't have seen in like a magazine or whatever, and they're like, oh, you should check out this zine, and they like pull up on their Google Drive, or they like send me the link to a Google Drive link. And that's just one way to get information around in a really cool way. And you can even play with print mediums, like scanning something or scanning a zine and putting it up on a Google Drive. And then there's also issue.com, which formats it into like a magazine looking format where you can flip pages and you have like a spread. So that's really cool. There are ads on that one, so fair warning. But it's like really fun to like flip the pages and be like, oh, cool. So a little better than like maybe scrolling down on Google Drive. But yeah, that's a really fun one. And we go to the next slide. So these are printed zines. So I put this information. This is exactly how we print Connecticut. So this is like what we send our printer. So if you want to like screenshot that or like email us later, we're like more than happy to share that. So we get it printed in New Haven with 0.5-inch bleed room. I had no idea what bleed room was before I started printing, but it's just like the outside area that is not printed. That's just used for the printers. And we use 4x4 full color printing, and we use like a glossy sheen with like saddle stitch. The only reason why we're able to go and print our zines is because Connecticut's like community funded, and we have a sliding scale. So I think the Cap the Rent zine I got for like $1, and then there's some like very fancy like art books, like this risograph one that was like, I think this was like $10. So one thing to just keep in mind is when you're going to go to a printer and maybe you're looking to share this around, maybe think about like a sliding scale option to make it accessible for people. Like Connecticut isn't for profit. And so something to keep in mind is about making it accessible while still not spending
your personal money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, and we also offer like the digital version for $2. So like just doing what you can to make it accessible while also understanding like, yeah, if you're spending money on supplies, you obviously like don't want to be dipping into your personal funds. Zoe and I both have full-time jobs. So this is just like something we do out of like love and joy for our community.
Yeah. And like, I will say like one great thing, definitely try to lean on resources that you have available. Like if you go to a university, like you better be using that printer. Like there is a free printer on campus where you can print stuff where you can like fold it up, or like a color printer. Like for the first issue of Connecticut, I wanted to print it on my printer, like a home, whatever printer that was color, but my printer ran out of ink halfway through printing the issue.
One
issue. And
we had what, like 30 pre-orders, 40?
We had like 50 pre-orders, and I like was just absolutely, I like cried. Like it was just awful. So then I had to like look around. Would not recommend going to Staples. Do not go to Staples. Like they are so expensive for God knows why. Like there's a lot of really cool, especially in Connecticut, like local printing places like Best Printing USA in Norwalk and Merit Printing, where they do it for a lot less and they work with you and they're cool. So
and you can always look up like union printing. Like that's a good way if you're not in Connecticut to look up places.
Or maybe like you work for some place that has like a printer in their office or a color printer, or you know someone who does like works at Kinko's. Like definitely like that's the beauty of zines, that you can really like lean on your community and find resources that are like at your fingertips to
like there's a lot of creative things you can do too, like beyond even paper. Like we did a zine fair. We went to a zine fair in New York once, and somebody who does like fabrics and stuff made a zine out of like cloth and like used like needle and thread. Like there is just unlimited possibilities to what you can do, which is really cool.
Like someone did in the last zine fair, at the New Haven zine fair, someone made like a cigarette box and like covered the cigarette box and like had their zine in that box. Like there's so much that you can do, just like even with resources that are like right here, you know. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. So how do you make a little zine like this cute little Cap the Rent zine? So this is like the printer paper version of it. So as you can see on the left is how you actually fold it, and then the right is like the template that you can use. So as you can see, like this side of the Cap the Rent zine is what you see when you fold it up, and then the other side, which is really cool, what Alice did was put information about the housing reform in Connecticut on the other side. So if someone folds it out, they can like read more information. So if you have papers with you, you can like maybe work on one while you're here. And all you have to do is just fold it like hamburger style or hot dog style, and then fold it hamburger, and then hamburger again till it makes these folds. And then all you have to do is cut the middle 2 panels, and then you can put it together by folding it in half, sort of like accordioning it in the middle, and then fold it over. And then you make just like a little zine. It's right here. It's printer paper, and it's so cute. And the template to the right shows you what the page number looks like what it all looks like together. So definitely would recommend doing that. And you can make a zine like with this amount of space. Like you can really do something like intense, like housing reform, or you just like something about like how your day was or what's been going on.
Literally anything, like your favorite types of flowers. You can dedicate a zine about your best friend. Like you can literally do absolutely anything. And also it doesn't just have to be like, I don't know, like a very common art form that you see in a lot of zines is collage. So if you have stuff near you too, like you can just cut out pictures and glue them in and just have it for yourself. So yeah.
And another thing too is that if, for example, you're like, wait, I kind of want something that looks like has color, you can always find like colored printer paper like these two just did, and have it on the front, or you can just like print the whole thing on the paper too. But there's so many different ways that you can do it, and you don't have to make it some schmancy thing. Like you can really like use a printer, and no matter what type.
Yeah.
And one thing that I love so much, I remember, there's a Yukon zine archives in stores. That's like an amazing resource if you're in Connecticut too, where they have like tons and tons of zines, like huge zine library. And the guys there, like the way that you print it also adds so much like flavor to your zine as well. Like having something like where maybe the color is running out and everything like adds such a cool looking effect, in the same way that getting it like to a printer looks. Like all these different ways you can play around with when creating a zine and making what message you want to relay.
Also, like if you're not into like hand drawing or handwriting, you can always take this template that's up on the right side of the slide and basically like take a sideways like Word document or Canva document that's the size of a piece of paper and like pre-make like what you want on each page and then print it out and then do the folding. So there is a lot of different things you can do.
And yeah, the Yukon Zine, our Zine Archive is free to the public. They're absolutely amazing. And you can just stroll right in. They're really nice people who work there and they love zines.
Yeah, look up the Dodd Center, Yukon, and that's where it is.
We did like a zine sort of workshop with the Poetic Release Club up there, and we had like a tour of the zine library, and they bring out all the zines for you. And it goes back like to when the Yukon Free Press was making zines, like specifically at Yukon, which was in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So this is a really cool resource, especially to get inspiration. I know, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and there's similar stuff like that other places too. Obviously, like we love to see it here in Connecticut at UConn, but I believe, is it Smith Library?
Yeah, the Smith College has a really in-depth zine library, and Connecticut is in the library too. And they have a lot of really cool stuff that like specifically focuses on like a feminist and gender equity sort of like take on zines too, where it's like really in-depth and acquired a lot of different zines in those sorts of areas. But it's very similar again to the Yukon Zine Library, where they have like really old zines from like the 80s that are just like have been mailed a million times, and they have it's like this beautiful wear on them. And yeah, highly recommend going.
So I say let's give folks like 2 minutes. If you don't have a piece of paper, you can go grab one. If you aren't able to do that right now and you want to practice like on Canva playing around and making a zine, just go on canva.com, make a free account. Let's give folks until 6/27 to get like whatever you want to work on a zine, and then we're also going to play a little video about zines for y'all while you do that. But let's give folks 2 seconds to go get materials if you'd like.
Yeah, if you want, just grab like a piece of paper, and even like you can get oh yay, thank you. And you can even grab like a piece of mail too.
Yeah.
Like you can just like do something over it.
Really get funky with it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And feel free to like drop any questions that you might have too in the chat. We'll answer some questions at the end too, but if there's something that you're like, as we're talking about this. And as people make their sorts of zines or maybe play around with it or something, you can go to the next slide, Jen. We have a little video to share just about Riot Girl, which is a movement that happened primarily in the Bay Area, that were primarily around fanzines for different bands, but also spread a lot of different sorts of information. And Riot Girl was like a name of a specific zine that was in the area in like the 90s. So they've really shaped a lot of the zines and the way that they take shape today. So yeah, we can watch that little video.
Riot Girl, to me, is about us girls taking over the means of production together to create and recreate actions and images which actively challenge the status quo in our lives, to utilize the means of production accessible to us in a manner which challenges dominant standards of professionalism. One of the common misconceptions of Riot Girl is that it only consisted of a small group of white, middle-class, college-educated, cisgendered females, girls, and both Cece and my experiences in the Bay Area and LA were really diverse.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really my experience as being fully, certainly not like a straight girl scene. For me, it was one of the first ways that I accessed any kind of queer culture.
Most of the time, life outside of my mind and my house is totally crazy. It's like playing Hot Lava, and I think, fuck, are we really still playing Hot Lava? Still? Do I really have to jump from the couch to the bookshelf to the piano bench and back without touching the carpet?
Ashley and I try to work together to select scenes that really represent all the different topics that are addressed. For example, we have zines that are written by sex workers talking about sex work. We have fanzines that are talking about being of color in the punk scene. We have fanzines that talk about mental illness, fat activism. So it was important for us to really, you see kind of like how the politics of Riot Girl really kind of touched on a range of different social issues. Mm-hmm.
The title of the zine is derived from a schoolyard game by the same name. The game was to say Chinese, Japanese, Indian chief, and to look like each of these groups. When you said Chinese, you would use your hands to stretch your eyes out and upwards. When you said Japanese, you'd stretch your eyes out and downward. And when you said Indian chief, you'd put your hand behind your head and spread out your fingers to resemble a headdress. But the real game was to slowly kill all people of color by fostering white superiority and internalized racism into young children in a playful, acceptable form. This zine is about telling the truth from many different perspectives. Chinese, Japanese, Indian chief. We're not playing that game anymore.
Throughout the 90s, I published something called Outpunk, which was a fanzine, as well as a record label devoted to LGBT music, queer punk, both here in San Francisco, in the United States, and abroad. Zines facilitated a type of expression that I didn't know existed anywhere else.
Some Riot Girl zines that I can remember that really changed things for me. Well, the biggest one for me was I'm So Fucking Beautiful by Nomi Lamb, who's actually a San Francisco person. But her work, it just changed things for me to see this queer feminist approach around bodies and representation and access and also just contributing to feminism in a way that, as someone in my 20s, it seemed like something that was done by people who are older than me. So Riot Girl was really influential in giving me permission to contribute and make art as opposed to just consuming it.
And she wonders if they comprehend the importance of what she is doing. Not just her, but everyone who is out there in some dark corner desperately trying to find their voice, aching to be heard by others. Is anyone out there? Because sometimes it seems that no one's listening. They're nodding their heads and acting like they get it, but nothing changes.
It's interesting to think about Riot Girl as coming out of, it doesn't come from nowhere, right? And you don't want to only credit it as coming out of, as a resistance to a white boy punk scene, that it actually has roots in feminism and queer activism that are not just response to the quote-unquote mainstream of punk rock, you know?
I think that all things are related: race, class, gender, able-bodiedness, age, and size. It's important to notice who the worker is behind the apron, just as it is important to notice who the person is behind the color of their skin.
Riot Girl is love, listening, changing, undefinable, with time to be intimate without fear of anyone laughing at me. Riot Girl meetings are a place for me to deal with my own homophobia, racism, self-esteem, communication, arrogance, craziness, talking, listening, feeling, changing, acting.
Yeah, so just awesome. Just the whole Riot Girl era of zines were just really influential, not only for Connecticut, but also just for so many zines. So really cool. And you saw like so many different types of zines and ways that you can make them too. And just really cool to like just look back on those sorts of, I don't know, things that built upon to this movement almost. Like Rat Girl building onto sort of like Rookie Mag, which the guys out there will know was super influential, like even for Connecticut too. And yeah, it really is so cool to see how independent press has changed throughout the years, and how many communities it features. So definitely recommend getting into it.
And it also serves as like a way to tell our own history, like in the same way that I said it's taking back our narrative and our own stories, like history of like all these groups that are being mentioned, like BIPOC folks and queer folks and low income folks, like all the time we're being left out of history. Like you don't find the things that the queer community did in textbooks in schools, right? This is our history in a lot of ways. Like that's why these archives and stuff like that are so special and so important. Like it contains a history that up until recently, if it even is now, like hasn't been valued. Obviously, like we value it, but still like the mainstream doesn't value these stories and this history. So it's important that we cultivate it through. That's why, like, I don't know, I love print. Like, I love being able to hold it and be like, this is our story. Like, these are our words. This is our art.
And I think, like, that's a big, important part that at least, like, I really value in Connecticut and with, like, a lot of different zines that are coming out of Connecticut is, like, just sharing resources and how to actually make zines in particular. Like, again, like, if you're done with this class, like, if you want to go to the next slide, we have like our email and like our Instagram, our website, and like all this stuff. Like if you want to know anything else, like I can send you our dimensions that we do again.
Anything.
Like I can send you how we format it. Like I think that's really important to share resources because I think zines are just such an important medium. And like the more zines, the better. Like please, please. Like there should this is not like some weird
gatekeeping
shit
at all.
This I feel like zines are like the opposite of that, like just trying to make something that's like incredibly shareable and just so beautiful. So yeah, truly happy to help like provide any sorts of like information that you can, because so much of like I feel like when we started creating Connecticut was just sort of like figuring it out and making mistakes and then being like like we have to do something very different. So happy to help anyone avoid those sorts of pitfalls by making zines.
Also, so many art forms are inaccessible, like and are just like for rich people now, and that's not how art should be. And this is an art form that you can make as accessible as possible, so we want to put as many people on, so please like go and spread the good word.
And check out your local printer and your local school, organization, business, whatever that you can get into and use their printer, because that's going to help you a lot too.
I think we can open up the floor for questions. I think we can let's see everybody.
You can put in the chat or anything. We're like happy to chat Connecticut or zine stuff otherwise.
I was going to say one question that came in over is I got a DM for it was, is there something you're looking forward to making a zine for next? Like, do you have something on the horizon? Is there something like a wish list project? Like, what's your next kind of aspirational thing? And while you're thinking about that, I want to say like folks drop stuff in the chat, message me, message our awesome facilitators. Like there are no bad questions when it comes to something like this, because it might be a new medium for a lot of folks. So ask away. So I'll let y'all take that one.
Well, obviously we have our next issue April 15th of Connecticut, number 10. But we also, I'm like creating this zine that's just like how to make a zine, that's just like resources of like how to actually make one, so that people can share it around of just like what we've learned so far, but also has some like quotes. And like I've been like talking to people who've made zines and been a part of zines, so definitely have a lot of stuff from the Yukon Zine library in there, but just like some recommendations of how to do it. So that's my next thing.
Also, about the next issue that's coming out in April, the theme is absurd. So I'm really excited for that because I think like there's a lot to work with there. And we do loose themes for every issue. It doesn't have to stick to the theme, but that's our big theme. So that's really exciting. And then I really do want to at some point do like a poetry only zine. That's something like I haven't tried yet and I haven't explored, and I used to write a lot of poetry, and lately like I have a hard time like finding the motivation to do so. So I think maybe if I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna write an only poetry zine, that would help. Ooh, some good question in the chat.
We like. So my well, this is a toughie. Oh, I've heard a lot of Fonto. I've heard a lot of people really like. It's like a phone app that's really good. Canva's a classic.
Canva's the shit.
I share Mars Photoshop account. So I love Photoshop very much.
I'm an Illustrator guy personally.
Those are really good. So definitely would recommend. But there's a lot of like, you can use like Photoshop dupes and stuff online too.
Yeah.
It's great.
Don't pay for Photoshop unless you like
You
really need to.
Yeah. And like Canva is honestly getting stronger and stronger by the day. So
I love Canva. We made these slides on Canva. Quick
yeah,
plug. And
good plug.
they were cute. So
and we also figured out like when formatting the zine, we formatted on Google Slides, and sometimes people are like, oh my God, like what? Like Illustrator, why are you doing that? But honestly, Google Slides is just as good. You can change the page setup. So it has bleed room and everything. Like you can create guides. Like that's how we format it on Google Slides. So high recommend. To build an audience for the zine. Well, so pretty much, yes, you can get Photoshop discounted. How we like built it. Well, so we started Connecticut, and I thought the idea in like deep COVID, like it was like June 2020 or something, or 2021.
yeah.
And so I was just like really thinking about, I just graduated from UConn in May 2020, deep COVID, like when COVID happened, and I was just like missing all the art and like the really cool stuff that was happening at UConn. And so I just like messaged friends and was like, hey, let's like make a zine and see what happens and put our art in it. And then it just sort of grew from there, because I feel like a lot of people were interested in like what Connecticut was putting out and like this sort of like what we were putting together. So there was just like a lot of interest in it. And it's really, really cool because like the first one are like old people who I graduated from UConn with, or like friends from forever. And then like
Now it's just grown so fucking much.
Grew crazy. So yeah, it's just really cool. But I feel like to like build hype and awareness, Connecticut hosts zine fairs all the time, and we're gonna do one for our 2-year birthday party in July. So definitely hit us up if you're interested. I feel like zine fairs are a great way to just get people who are interested in zines there. But I think also just like giving away zines, like the more zines that you can make, like cap the rent, like something that you can just print at home and share it around, like give it out at a concert, give it out at a party, like have something on Google Drive and just share it. Like, I feel like that's a really great way. But I mean, like Connecticut, really, like I did not think that it would like become a thing that anyone would read besides like
it's like for us,
my pals. And then it like like a lot of people really liked it. So I feel like there's definitely a large population of people who just like really love zines and want to support it. So
also like stickers is huge. Like if you just make stickers and literally put them in like bathrooms at bars, like believe it or not, like it will, especially if you have like a silly name like we do, that catches people's attention. Also social media obviously, but in-person events when you can is like a great way, I think, to like spread the word and get people excited.
Yeah, like there's some people who subscribe to zine and like buy it but like don't have Instagram and like have just like came through zine fairs and like found our website or like different stickers like Mar said. So there's definitely ways that you don't necessarily even need Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, good question. What is a zine fair? So basically, you know, it's a bunch of folks coming together and everyone has like a table and you sell zines or give them away or other forms of art. So it's just kind of like a convening of the zines. Really fun.
Yeah. And then how do we come up with a name for the zine? It was a laugh, it was a joke. It was like well, I feel like cunt, like that is like a queer term, like that is just like a cunty whatever. Like cunt is like this some amazing, like beautiful, hot, like it's cunty. And one time I was like at this Halloween party and and it was like an open event and there was this older woman there. And we sometimes do tabling events where like older people are like, what are you doing saying cunt? Like cunt is a bad word. And it's very interesting because I feel like cunt has been like weaponized, particularly like against like women and femmes. Thank you, Jackson. Yeah, we do lighters that have Connecticut on it. But I feel like it's been a term that's been weaponized against femmes like forever. And so it's really fun to like just be like, yeah, we're cunts, like we're cunty, like yeah. and have it be like a positive, hilarious term because whatever, it's amazing. And Connecticut, come on, it's like it's sitting right there. The word is sitting there. And I think, oh yeah, Daniel, much love you. I think like I don't really feel any pressure with institutions. I think like, of course, it's kind of funny. Like we did this one exhibit where we had to like make sure that we asterisked out all the U's, which is like, that's okay. Like no worries. And I feel like a lot of it is just sort of like existing and people show interest and then we sort of like are happy to work with that. Yeah. But I feel like of course there's like some sort of pressure where people will maybe like disregard a zine or something or the amount of like love that is put into it. But I don't know.
I feel like those people that like there's no room for that in the community. Like there's so much love and so many people in the community already that like people that don't take it seriously, like I don't really care about them. Like I don't mean that in like a rude way, but it's just like if you don't get it, you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you do not have to be like, if you're not interested in sort of like the cunty sort of like underground messiness of Connecticut, then like that's all good. It's all good, man.
And the zine is on a bi-monthly schedule, and I think part of what makes it so special too is it is submission based. So Zoe and I are the co-editors and we contribute a lot of pieces to the zine, but it's also just like it's community built. Like we take submissions every time we go through the submissions and we kind of like pick and place things based on where it looks. So it really is a community project. Like everybody, even if you haven't submitted, even if you've just gone to an event, it feels like something that you are part of. Yeah. So I think that's what makes also like back to that question about like building up hype. Like when you feel like you're part of something, like you're going to go tell your friends about it and you're going to just like reshare and all those things.
And it's like fun to just have, it like forces collaboration almost. Like it just forces people to have to work together and like put something, and it's really fun because like we format it. So for example, like this piece was submitted just the words and then we like format it into the zine and have it fit the page and everything. So like this was like a playlist and then like Mar formatted it into something that was in print. So it's really fun to like work with people and be like, oh, what do you think? And then they like it. It's really fun. It's like working with artists across the state.
Yeah. And it's really a collaborative effort, right? Because like not all media is meant for print. So when someone sends us something, they're like, hey, like I made this thing, like it's a video, but how do you want to use it? Or even, for example, Jackson, who's right here, sorry to put you on the spot. He makes really, really cool sculptures. And at first it was kind of like, shit, like how do we make a sculpture like and make like really like make it look cool in print? And we did it by working with Jackson's amazing sculptures. So it's really exciting, like the ways that you can get creative and put things that aren't traditionally print art forms into print. It's doable.
Yeah. Like we had someone submit like a documentary and we like just took stills for the documentary and put it in, did a QR code. And people submit stuff by just emailing us. So it's like Connecticut and then the period is the U. So people just email us their submissions and we work with them to like have it in the zine. So for example, like if it's like we've had someone submit like a multi-page thing that would be like it's like longer than this zine, so we like work with them and have it like fit within the print maybe, but really like we just try to have like the person's artwork in it. And when we post on our Instagram and say like we're like submissions are open for the next zine, then we like have the page dimensions too. So if someone is like, hey, I actually can like I have the space to like make a collage or something that's like within those specs, then we have it like in and of itself on the zine. And then we like move stuff around and make sure that it like flows well and like the two pieces like complement each other.
Yeah. Many a late night.
Yeah, but this Thursday is when like the zine submissions close, and then we like go through and just have something fit to print. But it's really fun, and it's really cool to see like people like Jackson also who's on this, and a lot of other people who have like submitted to Connecticut or have like had interest in it, and then like make their own zines and like make their own stuff. And I think that that's like a really important part, is like showing that your stuff should be in a zine too.
Also, we didn't talk about this yet because I know this is like, there's a lot of folks that are not from Connecticut on this call, but for folks that don't know, like Connecticut has like this reputation of being like a nothing state, of like being like a drive-through state, and like being boring, and like being super preppy and rich and all these things. And like part of this, and why it's like specifically like only people from Connecticut or that live in Connecticut can submit, is to kind of like push back against that, because we do have artists, and like a lot of people that like are really good artists like get to move and like live in New York and stuff like that. But a lot of people that can't do that like are still here and are still making really cool art and don't have as many platforms. So yeah, that's part of it too. And that's why it's so Connecticut specific. It's because like, no, this is for the people that like are here and like, or are from here, and you know, are told like, no, there's no cool art in Connecticut. It's wrong. There is cool art here.
Yes. And I think like Connecticut also is just so funny, because like there are just so many different like parts of Connecticut, like even like within like New Haven alone, like you go to the beach, you're in the main city, or in the suburbs, you're in like the grassy areas, you're in the forest, like, and that's like one city alone. And like Connecticut has so many different parts and different perspectives that people bring. Like we've had so many like weird photography of like abandoned places, like so much abandoned place photography, or just like poems that are like specifically about nature, specifically about living in like Hartford and the city. And so I just find it like, I think there's just like a lot to work with specifically.
Yeah. And there are bougie parts of Connecticut, but Connecticut is not a white state. And like that is something also that we're like combating. Like it's just not like there, it's a really diverse place. And like just a lot of times like those aren't the stories that get highlighted, right? So we're trying to like fix that.
But I think like if you're gonna make your own zine, like maybe you have something that's submittable, or maybe you make something by your like that's just your one topic or your one thing, but like people want to read it. Like it's really cool, like how much like we ship Connecticut, like we've shipped it to South Korea, like we've shipped it to like random parts of the United States, like places that are not near Connecticut.
Yeah.
like a bunch of subscribers in like Illinois, like Georgia, California, Oregon, Washington, like tons of different places that are really far away. And like people just want to read your stuff. Like people love, I think that like there's a push that people are like, I am sick and tired of being on my phone all the time. And so any excuse that we can have to see like rad stuff that is not on our phone is just really fun and cool. Yeah, our circulation numbers. So we like only print exactly how many are like interested in. Like we don't print way too many more, because it's just again like community powered and expensive. And so for our last issue we printed 450 copies, but we also do a lot of copies that are digital too, and people who sell like wholesale. But 450 is like individual numbers, and a lot of zine fairs too. Like a lot of people come through. Like with our last zine fair, like we sold out of our issues like an hour before the zine fair ended, just because like, and we're like, we have nothing left. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just like a huge interest. It's kind of crazy. And yeah, you can definitely submit more than one piece. Honestly, like if you're considering submitting to Connecticut, like the more the merrier, honestly, because then we have like more to work with. Because a lot of it is that we don't want to just like throw something in there and be like if it doesn't fit. Like we were very like, if you've read the zine, like we're very like
curating a vibe.
Like these two pages, like this is a different person, that's a different person, that's a different person, and we just like we want to make sure that the colors like all fit together and like the vibe is right. And so like we like put care into the pieces. So the more that you send, the more we can be like, oh, that's a good match
that
with
works.
that.
Yeah.
Like this was a poem about strawberries, and like we had like this strawberry pie like photography. Like it just was perfect.
Completely separate artists.
Yeah. So definitely recommend that.
So I want to do a last call for questions. And while folks are digging up if there are any other questions, I want to say that one of the things that y'all said that I want to point out that's super important is you are, maybe you said and didn't say, the two of you are so unapologetically yourselves. And I think it's important to remember that when you do something like this, not everyone is going to be your audience. And that isn't for you two to remember. That's for everybody like thinking and doing something or trying to do this. It's okay if not everyone's your audience, because if you're doing something that is everybody, that probably means you're not really leaning into one direction or another because you're trying to make it palatable for everyone. So thinking about like, okay, maybe this is too nuanced. I promise you it's not too nuanced.
It's not. Like even like this specifically, like this is about shattering abolition, like talking about like these like Oakland, like sort of like capitalizing, like, I don't know, like you can make stuff that's pretty intense. I think that's what separates like maybe like mainstream media and zines, is that like you have something like milquetoast, like something that isn't supposed to like make any sort of waves, and you have stuff where like you can fully express yourself and be vulnerable and like use that form.
Also, I'm sorry, like if a professor at some random college can get paid a shit ton of money to like research one random chemical, you can make a zine about the one plant that you really love. Like, and I like you will find someone that will love it.
Literally.
So yeah.
And we love it. Like we love it. Like it's so fun, like sharing different artists and like being in community with like so many different artists. Like every time we love it. Like we love your work. It's just like we love going through submissions. That's
so fun and beautiful.
With going through zines, like after a zine fair, like we are like going through the zines. So definitely make a zine. We want to read it. Like we'll do it. Let's do a trade. Let's do a zine trade. Let us know. Oh, cool. Good to know. Oh my God. We have to check it out. Blue Stockings, bet.
Really cool.
We're there. Yeah, Printed Matter in New York is really fun too. Yeah, there's so much like cool stuff, and yeah, that's also a big thing is zine trades. Maybe zine publisher. I've always wanted to buy a big ass printer because because so many of the we used to have these printers in Norwalk who were these old guys, and they were so freaked out by the zine. So it's really be cool to not have to worry about that. But yeah, also zine trades are big too. Like if you ever want to do a zine trade, if you make a zine, hey, DM us.
Hit us up.
Let's do a trade. Let's trade. And that's a great way to also get your
stuff out there
too.
Yeah.
Like whenever we're at the zine fair, we literally go around with our zine. I was like, want to do a trade? We'll do a trade. So let's trade, man.
Yay. Thanks all for being here also, like so excited.
Oh yeah, well we do around CT. Well, now we're trying to do it like a good fair amount. But there's also art book fairs. I know around CT in Western Mass, there's the art book fair.
New York does a shit ton.
But there's like we'll text you, Jack. We'll text you. Because there's a bunch of little ones. There used to actually be a New Haven zine fair, I guess, before we started. Like 10 years ago or whatever, but
oh cool.
But yeah, there's definitely other art book fairs, and I feel like there's been more like popping up. So yeah, there's gonna be more. And also
go ahead.
Oh no, just just encouraging you to make your work and make your own zine fair too.
I was going to ask when I send everything afterwards. So folks, I will send the video. I'll send their contact information that they posted on the slide. Can we share your email addresses? And then that way people can reach out with other questions that might come up.
Please. And yeah, even like what you were saying, Beverly, about like taking submissions for zines, like if you need help formatting your zine or anything, like
hit us up.
Like we will not charge you anything. Like we just want to see more zines being made. So like just let us know, and we're happy to like help in any way that we can.
And have fun. That's the most important part.
Literally.
It's not meant to be stressful.
No.
Like life is stressful enough. I'm telling you, like we both have full-time jobs. Like this is our like away from that time. But it also connects. Like I work for Renew. But yeah.
Well, it does. And it's like the idea of like advocacy and finding your space and things like that. And that's like the connection. And so I want to say first, thank you both very, very much. This was like power hour of all things. And so, so empowering. And as well, yeah, I echo this, Beverly. Excitement, super contagious. Everyone that's here, like I said, I will send everything at some point tomorrow. I want you to remember, do not be shy reaching out to folks. We also offer one-to-one coaching with Renew. So you can meet with myself, you can meet with Nina. I'm sure Mark can dig in sometime for to meet with you if you want to chat. Zoe will send you some emails and connect. Please feel free to connect. Like, do not be shy, because in order to make the change that we're all looking for, and in order to make the change that Renew is really fighting for, we have to stay in contact and we have to stay in community. So I will say to everyone, have a wonderful night. Don't be afraid to reach out at all. Oh, is there one more question? Is there a Zine WhatsApp group?
That's a good point. Maybe we'll post something on our story and do that, honestly.
Yeah,
because that would be really cool.
Yet, not that I know of, but pretty
Jenny,
sick.
you got a mind on you. You got a noggin. I see you. I see that. But yeah,
I love it. Everyone have a wonderful night. Please take such good care of yourselves. See you at our next program. Bye-bye.
Bye.